Hello, kids. I hope by now you understand more about how passive voice works. Today we're going to focus on how to form questions in passive voice. This could even be more confusing to you, so you have to pay close attention to it. All right, let's start. So before we talk about how to form questions in passive voice, let's have a quick revision about forming questions. Now, in English, there are two types of questions. They are closed questions in which only a simple answer is required. For example, yes or no. There are two examples here. Do you like this movie? Are you a student in 2D? So with these questions, all is required to answer these type of questions is just to say, yes, I do like this movie, or no, I'm not a student in 2D. Okay, so we call them closed question, or sometimes we call them yes-no questions. Now, another type of question is open questions. Now, these type of questions, more information in the answer is required. For example, when did you join this college? Or why do you like Chinese history? Now, with this information, you can't just give an answer such as yes or no. You have to give us a more detailed answer. For example, when did you join this college? Naturally, you have to tell people in which year or on which date that you joined this college. And then why do you like Chinese history? You have to give a reason to explain why you like Chinese history, this subject. Okay, so with this type of question, which a detailed answer is required, we call them open questions. There's another thing that you need to remember about forming questions. That is the word order. The word order of a question is a little bit different from a sentence. The order is, first, we have the auxiliary verbs, or they are the helping verbs. These are the verbs which help us to form questions, such as do, be, or they would appear in a question in the form of is, am, are, was, or were. Other examples of auxiliary verbs would be will, has, or have. Please bear in mind that these are just some examples of auxiliary verbs, and there are bound to be more. Okay? What comes after auxiliary verbs would be the subject. Okay, they could appear in a sentence as a name or as a pronoun. Okay, what comes after the subject would be the main verb. Okay, here are two examples. Are you buying this box of masks? And will the government cancel school till the summer? Okay, now in this sentence, you see that at the beginning we have are and will. These are examples of auxiliary verbs. Okay, and what comes after the auxiliary verbs is you and the government. These are some examples of the subject. Okay, and in a sentence, usually it is the subject that comes at the beginning of a sentence. But in the question format, we have a different word order, and the subject always comes after the auxiliary verbs. Okay, and then what comes after the subject? It would be the verb. Okay, in this case, we have buying and also cancel. All right. After revising on what a question looks like, let's revise on how to change an active voice sentence into a passive voice sentence. Now, there are a few steps which I think will make it easier for you to follow. First, you find the main verb, okay, which would help you to locate the subject receiver, and usually that's the object which comes right behind the verb. Okay, and once you locate where the action receiver is, usually you will be able to find the action doer at the same time. Okay, and then after we identifying where the action receiver is, we can move the action receiver to the subject. Okay, because the action receiver would be now the subject of the sentence. Okay, and then we look at the verb again, and then we judge what tense is being used there. All right, then, okay, we can think about how to change the active verb into a passive verb. okay? Because we have to change the verb according to the tense, okay? And when we change the passive verbs, remember, it should be a verb to be plus a past participle, okay? All right, so let's look at an example to refresh your memory. Look at this sentence. The cat next door caught my poor hamster last week. Okay, now remember the first thing that you need to do, that is to locate the main verb. Okay, and in this case, we have caught as the main verb. All right, once we know where the main verb is, now we know where the action receiver is. And yes, that is my poor hamster. All right, that is also the object of the sentence. Okay, now we put the action receiver right at the front because now it has become the subject of the sentence now. All right, so we put my poor hamster at the beginning of the new sentence. All right, now we look at the verb again. All right, this is caught. Then we have to judge what tense is being used here. And if you are smart, you would know that caught is the past tense of catch. All right, and now we have to think about how to change an active voice verb into a passive voice of verb. All right, and in past tense, the passive verb would be was or were with the PP. Okay, and in this case, catch. Okay, we have the past tense and also the past participle. They are the same. They are also caught. All right. Okay. And then look at the subject of the sentence. All right. Now this comes before the verb, and this is the subject or the action doer, the cat next door. All right. And now basically we can form a sentence already. That is, my poor hamster was caught by the cat next door last week. All right. Now, pay attention. We have to use was in this case because the subject, the new subject, my poor hamster. Okay. It is a third person singular. So in past tense, we just use was. All right. If you remember how to form passive voice sentences, then it is not very difficult for you to form passive voice questions, as the rules are very basically the same. All right. We also follow those few steps. Let's take a look of present tense question first. Look at this sentence. Do you expect me to return the book to you? All right. Now, first thing you need to do is to locate where the main verb is. Now, here's a question. There are two verbs in this question, expect and also return. So which one is the main verb? The answer is the first one, expect. All right. The main verb usually comes at the beginning. All right. So we have now identified the main verb. And now we know where the action receiver is, which comes right after the main verb. That is me. All right. Now, another tricky thing is me. This is the action receiver. All right. It was the object of the sentence, but now we have to change it into the subject. So we cannot put me at the beginning anymore. We have to change it to I. Remember that. All right. Okay, now the next thing we have to look at is the tense of the question. Now, usually we look at the beginning, the auxiliary verb, because usually the auxiliary verb in a question tells you what tense the question is, all right? In this case, do, okay? We know that the question is in present tense, all right? Now, we have to change the verb into passive verb in present tense. And if you remember, it is a verb to be plus PP. That would be is, am, are. Okay, and then the PP would be expected. All right. Okay. Now, just to remind you, in a question, we have to follow this order. The first thing that comes first would be auxiliary verb, and then the subject, and then the main verb. So when we form the question, we have to keep that in mind. The order should be, am I expected? All right, we have to use am because the question now, the subject now is I. All right, that's why we choose am, okay, as the auxiliary verb. All right, and then we put the rest of the sentence to return the book to you. All right, so the whole question in passive voice would be, am I expected to return the book to you? Now let's look at another example in past tense. Did they allow children to join the activity? Okay, now we locate the verb first, that is allow. All right, this is the main verb, the verb that comes first. All right, so we now know where the action receiver is that comes after the main verb. That is children. All right, this is the action receiver. All right, okay, so this was the object, and now we make it as the subject of the new sentence. Okay, and then now we look at the verb allow, and we have to decide whether what tense it is being used. Okay, so we look at the auxiliary verb did. We know that past tense is being used. Okay, and now we have to change the verb into passive verb in past tense. And if you remember, that would be was or were plus the PP of allow, that would be allowed. Just add ed at the end. Okay, and then as a reminder, all right, in question, we have to follow this order. Okay, we have to put the auxiliary verb at the beginning, all right, and then a subject, and then the main verb, which should be were children allowed. Okay, now we use were because children is plural, all right, so we have to use were, all right, and then we put the rest of the sentence to join the activity. So the whole question will be, were children allowed to join the activity? Can you follow? Let's look at another example in future tense. Will the school cancel the study tour in May? All right, now the main verb, cancel. Okay, and then we know the action receiver, the study tour in May. All right, this is rather long. All right, this is action receiver. Now it has become the subject of the new sentence. Okay, and then we look at the auxiliary verb at the beginning, will. We know that this is in future tense, and when we change it into a passive verb, it is will be cancelled. The PP of cancel would be just adding ed at the end. All right, and then another reminder about the order of a question, auxiliary verb, subject, and then the main verb. That's why we have, will the study tour in May be cancelled by the school? This is the question in passive voice. Okay, now we look at the question in present continuous tense. Is someone fixing the toilet now? Okay, the main verb would be fixing. Okay, after fixing, the main verb, that would be the toilet. This is the action receiver, and now we have it as a new subject of the question. All right, so we'll put it there first, the toilet. Okay, now we look at the auxiliary verb, is, and then with the main verb fixing, that would be a present continuous tense. And if you remember, in present continuous tense, the passive verb would be is, am, are with being, and then the PP fixed. Okay, the PP of fixed would be just adding ed at the end. All right, so we have the question, is the toilet being fixed now? Okay, remember the order for a question, auxiliary verb, and then the subject, and then the main verb. Okay, and now a question in present perfect tense. Has Mary informed her parents yet? Okay, and then look at the main verb, informed. All right, and then we have the action receiver after the main verb, that would be her parents. Okay, now here comes a question. All right, her parents, it couldn't be the subject because we don't know who her is. All right, so we have to change her parents into Mary's parents if we want to make it the subject. Okay, all right, and now we look at the auxiliary verb of the question, has, with the main verb informed. All right, we know that this question is in present perfect tense, and in present perfect tense, the passive verb would be has or have been informed. Okay, and now if we remember the order of a question, the question in passive voice should be, have Mary's parents been informed by her. We have at the beginning because the subject Mary's parents is plural. Okay, so it should be have Mary's parents been informed by her. Okay. After looking at how to form passive voice questions in different tenses, you might wonder, what do we do with the action doers? We said that the action doers in passive voice are not important, okay? But then sometimes we do include them. So what's the rule? For this, what you need to remember about the main reason of using passive voice is that we want to put the emphasis on the action receiver, all right? But sometimes we do have names and then in the names we do give out important information in the sentence. In that case, we have to use by in the passive sentence or question in order to introduce them and to give out the important information. Look at this sentence. Doris wrote that essay. Okay, when we change it into passive voice sentence, that would be that essay was written by Doris. Okay, now Doris is a name and it tells you some important information. And without Doris, actually the sentence seems a little bit incomplete. All right, so in this case, even though when we write the sentence in passive voice, we do need to include by Doris in the sentence. All right. Now, however, sometimes the subject doesn't really give you any information, especially when the subject is we, they, you, or someone. They are very vague. Actually, it doesn't tell you anything. All right. In this case, then you don't really need to include them in the passive voice sentence. You can just leave them out. All right. Take a look at this example. Someone has stolen my wallet. When we change it into passive voice, it becomes my wallet has been stolen. Okay, now the action doer, someone, is like unknown. It doesn't really tell you who stole your wallet, right? Okay, so when you write it in passive voice sentence, you can just leave them out altogether. All right, you don't have to include it and introduce it by. All right, you don't have to say my wallet has been stolen by someone. All right, it doesn't really give anyone any important information. Okay, so in this case, you can just leave them out. All right. Now it has come to the end of the video, and I hope it helps you understand better on how to form passive voice questions. And I hope you have no problems when you do the exercise in your grammar book. So that's all for today. Stay tuned for more videos to come. Bye.